Namaste. Welcome to Musings by Masha. I am Masha, and as you can see from the title of this video, we will be looking today at two different reproductions of a historic Vandenborre tarot, which is also referred to as Flemish tarot or the tarot flamand. And it's again different sources indicate different dates for that. Again, as you can see in the title of the video, the two copies I have is one by Pablo Robledo that he issued last year, and this one is the vintage copy that I managed to source on eBay. Both of these decks, they are most recent additions to my tarot library. I'm very excited about them. And the Pablo Robledo version, one of my friends here in Australian tarot exchange swap group reached out and allowed me to made it possible for me to have this copy at the cost. And later on I have managed to source the vintage copy that dates of vintage 1983 on eBay, which was rather inexpensive, and if you look at the cost of the deck only, it's probably one of well, if not one, but I think the cheapest out of my my vintage decks that I have in my tarot library, and I do have a video on my vintage decks as well. I have also decided to title this video as Geeking Out on Marseille, and I just wanted to mention that it's not, I mean, these decks, the Vandenborre tarot, is not purely Marseille, right? But because for me this video is all about geeking out and sharing the cards side by side, and I see those the Vandenborre tarot is a blend, I guess, as a hybrid between Reveal Tarot, which the original one dates from what we know 1650, and Tarot de Marseille. So yeah, I am putting this video up as my episode of my series on geeking out on Marseille. Also, when it comes to the original, original year when the deck was produced, Pablo Robledo indicates here that Vandenborre tarot was of 1762, when I trust, and I haven't opened this one yet, it either will indicate 1770 or 1780, but at the end we will have a look. This one comes with a little guidebook, so we'll have a look and just to kind of to clarify those details. I have also enjoyed browsing the files of the older tarot decks in two museums, one of them being National Library of France and one of them being the British Museum of London, where the original, and I'm not sure actually yet, I haven't done probably enough research, I'm not sure if the Library of France has that Flemish tarot, but there is a copy kept in the British Museum, and from what I've seen, that copy is closer to Pablo Robledo's, and I will link the page below so you can see the details and the images if you choose to of the original that is kept in the British Museum of London. So now I know Dodal is there, one of the original Dodal decks is there, and one of the Vandenborre decks is there, so that makes me even more excited about making my way to England hopefully next year for tarot meetup, but also to spend that time in London and hopefully to arrange an appointment so I can see the original. Unfortunately, those two decks are out of print now, but I am aware that two versions of Vandenborre tarot are available for purchase. One of them is actually Pablo's, and that's probably the most luscious version available, and the most delicate version available on the tarot market, I guess, right? And pricey one, but It's released by Kartograme and now is on print or printed to order on the most wonderful choices of paper, of the two different types of paper, and also another version, and I don't think it's fully facsimile, and the backs are different from the original, is available from Lauren Forrestal website, and I will link the Kartograme's Instagram page on the website. On the Instagram page, Agnes, who runs Kartograme company, you can see the videos of the production of that, more I guess more refined in the way the cars are produced, and she's based in France, and of course Lauren Forrestal is more based on facsimile, but I cannot speak for that. I've never seen that deck in person. I only know that it's available, it's still currently available for purchase. But let's get to the cars. We're all here for the cars, and we're all here to see the side-by-side. I guess I don't necessarily prefer to call them comparison, because very often the different reproductions, I just see them differently. But yeah, side-by-side. When we look at the packaging before I even open, so the vintage version by Kartamundi, and this one is called Vandenborre Bacchus Terror, and we will have a look because Hierophant is replaced by Bacchus card by Kartamundi of Belgium, but also it does have reference to US Games Incorporated as the company, but the cardstock is the vintage Kartamundi cardstock. And so printed in Belgium. Kartamundi is a Belgium printing company, card printing company. And Pablo Robledo's version, this is again, as I mentioned, it's last year's one, and it came in that beautiful envelope, handmade envelope, which is very much reminiscent, right, of the how the cards used to be wrapped or packaged in the older times, which I really love. Now, if I before I even open, because this one I was so fortunate, so when I pull it out of the box, it did come with the little white booklet, but we'll have a look at it at the end of this video. And the box is quite beaten up, as you can see, right, sort of kind of flimsy-ish, but box is a box, tag box, but also, well, the cards, they're kind of still brand new in plastic, with just a little bit of a tear there in that plastic. But just before I unwrap Pablo Robledo's, I just wanted to show you the thickness, the difference in thicknesses of the decks. And I don't know if you can probably see quite clearly that the Kartamundi version, it's way thicker, but it's not much heavier though. It's only about 13-15 grams heavier than Pablo Robledo's, but of course the cardstock seems to be thicker in this particular one, in the vintage version of Kartamundi. But yeah, I'm very excited to unwrap this beautiful one, to show you. I really love those handmade envelopes. They just, for me, they're like total work of art. And for a person like me who loves to geek out on my decks, I just get so much joy out of them. My copy is actually number 3, and I let me see of how many. 3 out of 32, is it, or was it only 32? As a 3rd edition that was released in April last year. So yeah, that's exciting, right? And of course this one I kind of need to, it's got sort of that little pool, golden pool, that you can just bring around. So we'll move that plastic away to do a card comparison now. If you've been following my channel, generally when I do my walkthroughs on unboxings or side by side, I just use AGM, AE weight, Tarot of that kind of standard original sites to use it as a card comparison. So we'll take a card and we'll compare. But you see, Pablo Robledo's, it comes with that extra paper that you wrap around the cards. Yeah, as I mentioned, mine is copy number 3, which I'm very fortunate to have. And they are the bags. I will show you when we turn the camera around, I will show you the up close of the bags, but you can see they're rather different, right? And from what I've seen from the British Museum, Pablo Robledo's bag is the truest to the original. Now, Pablo Robledo's also comes with his, I guess, signature, the logo card that we have. I probably flipped it, I don't know, but anyway. So again, with the same bags, we'll just put those out to the sides. And now that's my AGM version, the standard tarot size, what I refer as the standard tarot size. And the Cartamundi one, if we compare, yeah, that's pretty much, you see exactly the same size, just the corners are sharp in the Cartamundi version of the cards. When Pablo Robledo's decks, they seem to be smaller, and I love that, but also they came with sharp corners. But if you just have a look, so they are narrower, probably by a good half centimeter, 7 millimeters, and they're shorter than more what we used to as a standard tarot card, probably by a good centimeter around that. So that's the card comparison. And if I am to actually compare, if you happen to have that vintage copy of by Cartamundi and Pablo's, so yeah, they of course, it's a similar size comparison, right? So there we have it. The cardstock is rather different as well. If we have a look at the Cartamundi cardstock, that vintage deck of 1983, it's sort of like, I mean, it's flexible a little bit, but I'm too worried, right? Because the front of the cards are uncoated, when the backs of the cards, they sort of feel semi coated, so it's different. The front and the backs of the cards are different when it comes to the cardstock, but if we look at Pablo Robledo's, they are way more flexible, and while they do feel like sort of like rose petally matte cardstock and smooth cardstock, and they do have that rose petally feel, it's nothing like those thick rose petal decks or cardstock that is very popular these days. This one, you can see the pliability of the cards is wonderful. It's actually amazing, and they are quite light as well, and a dream to shuffle, really, because if you do own Pablo Robledo's Dodal Tarot that was released last year, is the cardstock is well, I want to say is the same, if it's not if not very, very close to matte and smooth, and does have the sort of velvety rose petally type of feel to it, which I really, really appreciate. But yeah, so now let's turn the camera around and we'll just have a look at the backs of the cards up closer, just to see the difference there in those reproductions. And while I have sorted Pablo Robledo's version, this one look like the cards are mixed up, so I just need to sort them out so we can have a look at them side by side. And I will also I've got here my Vivial Tarot, just the Mages only deck that I will refer to when it comes to certain cards, which well, I think drew the inspiration resemblance from the old Vivial Tarot de Vivial of 1650. Before we have a look at the major arcana cards, the trump cards, just let's have a look at the backs again, just a little bit closer, because they do differ quite a bit. So we can see the back in the Cartamundi decks. I'll just probably lift one at a time. We can see more sort of like a honeycomb pattern there around the face of the sun. And also we can see the difference in coloration, right? So it's more like white and light blue, when here the pattern is slightly different. We do see sort of a pattern resembling the sun in Pablo Robledo's as well, but it's the pattern around is just a little bit different again. So yeah, that the difference in the backs, and from what I've seen, as I mentioned, at the files that are kept at the British Museum. Pablo Robledo's back is the closest to the original. So now let's have a look at those cards. So we have here the Magicians. Straight away, and I will just I guess bring it up now with the difference between the coloration and the cards as well. Their backgrounds, as you can see in the Cartamundi vintage version, the cards, they seem to be a little bit more aged, a little bit more washed out when it comes to the colors. When Pablo Robledo's version, the backgrounds of the front of the cards, right, the backgrounds are just kind of white, slightly maybe off-white, only little aged, but the colors are a little bit brighter. And again, as I mentioned from my research, these ones are closest to the original. Now, I love the Magician. Just have a look at the number of tools he's got here on the table. I always like my Magician having the dice cards, and this one has plain cards among the variety of other tools. I love the eyes. Yeah. So that's the different card, right? So instead of the High Priestess or La Popes, we have here the Spanish El Español Capitano Eracas. So that's the reference to the Spanish Captain Fracas, and I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, but a character from the Commedia dell'arte, so it's more the theatrical comedy, I think, well, from what I understand. And I love that, as I mentioned, because I do see having that instead of the purpose, we can see that the cards were made more for the common folk, right? But again, the backgrounds are consistent, a little bit just slightly off-white in Pablo Robledo's, but more whitish. The line work is sharper, the colors are brighter. You can see the more kind of tree, grassy greens in Pablo Robledo's version, when it's more olive in the Cartamundi's older version of the cards. As I mentioned again, the fronts are uncoated, and this one on the backs are coated when it comes to cardstock. So that's our captain, Spanish captain featured. The Empress, I do love the eye expressions as well. So Pablo's, of course, they cut imperfectly, but I know some of my friends, they have straightened out the kind of they trim the cards a little bit more. I did contemplate on that, but for now I think I'm just keeping the cards as they are, especially in the Pablo's version. To be honest, I really love both of them, but yeah, and I'm so glad that I managed to source both of them to add into my tarot library. So instead of the Hierophant or the Pope, we have Bacchus, the god of wine, sitting on the wine barrel, which I think again adds that extra lightness and humor. I did mention in one of my lives that I mentioned many times that I very much appreciate fine wine, and my life path card is a Hierophant. So yeah, I love Bacchus as well for card number 5. The Lover. I do appreciate again that quirkiness of the style of the or the wood blocks, the art. So as you can see, the vintage Cartamundi, the color seems to be a bit more muted, when Pablo's are more vibrant. So we have the Wheel of Fortune, La Force, and yeah, so we have the Le Pendu. I do love the spelling in all those old decks, and some things are misspelled or spelled differently. And here, I guess we see that reference or the inspiration to the Vandenborre tarot that came from Reveal tarot. And I do have at hand one of the, well, Reveal tarot Mages Only, Trumps Only by Jean-Claude Flanois, and I only have, well, I mean, one set. It comes with two sets of mages, so they made, the cards are a little bit kind of reversed, and I just selected some, but you can see the Hangman is very reminiscent to, very similar to the Reveal tarot as well. Death seems to have, yeah, bones, but also feels a little bit more flesh there as well, attached to the bodies, to the bones. So it's another card that I can see resemblance with the Reveal, and of course the one that I selected faces the other way, but I do have the mirror copy of it, but this one is just for the reference to show you. So also Soul, Fama, right, so the same writing in the Reveal deck. Yes, they're the devils, but also this is the devil from Reveal, so we have quite strong resemblance, right? And so we have the eyes on the belly, eyes everywhere really, hey? Eyes on the knees, seem to be something in the hips and the back of the body. I think this is the devil with the most eyes I have seen. And then once again, just like in a Reveal tarot, instead of the tower, we have the lightning depicted in the cards. And it almost looks like a shepherd there with the, I don't know, cattle, sheep here. And this is a Reveal's version. Our star is the astronomer, right? So we see that person looking at the stars. And again, this is a Reveal of 1650, also has the astronomer for the star card. And I do love the style of those, the buildings. Well, I'm assuming, since it's a Belgium deck, a Flemish deck, that's the style of the buildings from that time of 18th century of Belgium. Again, another card, which is the moon. We have, well, I don't know if it's male or female, a person there, and the moon card, so it's different from having a crustacean and two dogs, right, that we have in our more in Marseille style decks. So this one again points to Jacques Reveal tarot. And the sun, so you see we have the figure on a horse, right? So not quite a baby, a young person possibly on a horse. This one is from, again, from that Reveal tarot. So I guess from my understanding, Reveal tarot was the first tarot feature, the baby, the young person on the horse for the sun card. And there, of course, the Vandenborre versions. Judgment. I do love Le Monde, the world, and also the uniqueness of the Vandenborre, that our full card Le Faux number 22 in this particular deck. Once again, you can see inconsistency in cutting with Pablo Robledo. But I must say, for this particular deck, I actually don't mind, because it does feel to me very kind of fun, very humorous and raw and down-to-earth deck. So those imperfections, I think they actually make this deck very close to perfect, if not perfect for me. I just haven't read with that long enough. And let's take a quick look now at the minors, beginning with the Suit of Cups. Again, Pablo Robledo's version of Vandenborre and the Cartamundi one. I do appreciate both, hence I can't really compare. They both are beautiful. Love them. The 10th cup is like, feels like a bit too much there, right? So just hardly fitting into the frame. And I forgot to mention, but you probably would have seen now the borders here, more kind of check style borders. So now the first quartz, we have the valleys for the pages. I love the faces of the horses, the eyes of the human figures in this deck. King. And we have the coins here. Cartas de Suisses. Yeah, I can't. Yeah, so it does say Vandenborre cards here. So the card maker Vandenborre of Brussels. So that's what I can decipher from the card. F.I. Vandenborre. So I guess they are the initials of the card maker or the engraver of this Flemish terror or terre flamande. Love this emblem there, that lion. I think I mixed them up in sorting them, so there we have it. The valet of the page of coins. Queen of coins and the kings. Also the suit of batons. It's interesting that some of them, well, we have the crosses of course here for the batons, but they don't, some of them don't have numbers and some of them are numbered. Suit of the batons. Yeah, so I thought maybe even and odd, but it's just a little bit inconsistency there in numbering or featuring of the actual number here. For the batons. It's quite handy to have numbers, especially for the higher numbered pips, so you don't have to, if you're new to reading pip decks, you don't have to count how many of them are here. And of course, as an Terre de Marseille lineage, the batons are straight and crossed. Once again, so we have the Arabic numerals and the Roman numerals combined in these cards. So now the chords of the... I didn't sort them correctly, did I? It's just bizarre that this deck, the vintage one, it was then plastic, but the cards were not really sorted. Well, somewhat they were, but I had to resort them myself. I love the Queen of Batons. Look at her. Okay. And the last one is the suit of swords, of course. I also do love how clear the pips are. They're nice and large. And as you go higher in pips, you just see that density. So again, number 2 didn't have anything today. No, nothing for number 2, but number 3 is numbered. But you can see how the density increases and that space shrinks in between the swords themselves, like shrinking the patterns inside, or flower in this case. I think they're just so wonderful and unique. And how amazing that these days we have that access to our historic tarots of 18th century, 17th century. So again, tents feature there, but you see how much the density is there. I think just for readings it's wonderful that you can see that increased density as you move through your suit of pips. Now, last Queen of Swords and the Kings. So let us have a look at the little guidebook that came with the vintage version of Cartamundi's version of this Vandenborre Bacchus tarot, featuring the Bacchus, the wine god there. So yeah, this one is actually, it's quite interesting, right? So this booklet indicates that this Flemish tarot first cut in wood by F.I. Vandenborre around 1775, when in Pablo's paper, as I showed before, the deck, the cards date 1762. So again, slightly inconsistency there, but again, well, we know towards the second half, right, of the 18th century. So 1983 is the publication date by Cartamundi. So a little bit here of the history of tarot, some preface explaining the cards, references to Stuart Kaplan of US Games. And what's quite interesting here is that the major arcana is divided into different sections, right? So we have here the Magus or the Magician, but then we have the Triumph of Love, so Charms of Love, and for that we have the Empress, the Emperor, the Spanish Captain, replacing the Popus card, and the Bacchus replacing the Pope card, Temperance, and Lovers, and then Chariot and the Strength. But also the other division of the charms is the Triumph of Death, and the charms of death here are the Wheel of Fortune, the Hermit, the Hangman, the Death itself, the Devil, the Lightning for the Tower, and we also have the Triumphs of Eternity, so the charms for eternity, inclusive of the Star, the Moon, the Sun, the Judgment, and the Justice, and the World cards, and possibly the Fool. Yeah, so then we have the some other definitions of the minor arcana, and they're not esoteric at all by the first look that I have here at this booklet as I flip through it. The cross spread, so here it's attributed to Oswald Wirth, but yeah, it's the one that you use only the majors only, and from what I've studied with Camille, and she doesn't claim it to be hers as such, but we call this spread as the French cross, right? So you lay down 4 cards, and the 5th card is actually you add the trumps to make that synthesis card. Actually did feature the spread as one of my favorite when I look at more than 3 card spreads. The French cross and the do and don't are my favorite when it comes to 5 cards. It's a gypsy spread that I need to read more on about, and some examples of those readings provided. Yeah, so it's actually quite a nice little booklet that I'm very curious to actually read through their suggested meanings. I hope so much you enjoyed having a look at those this side-by-side video of the 2 beautiful tarots, unique tarots, and what I think tarots that have that sense of humor, and tarots that were made for that kind of for the common folk, really, right? To read in a tavern, to read at the kitchen table, which I personally find those decks, I find them very, very charming, and I'm very excited also to try out the kind of the not meanings as such, but more like spreads and inspirations from the little guidebook as well, which is actually for me was quite refreshing to read through very quickly with you. Of course, didn't read through all of it, but just kind of get an idea what the content is in this little guidebook. But I'm curious to know about whether you have either of those reproductions, either by Pablo Robledo from last year, or maybe even previous editions. I'm not sure if he had many, or the vintage copy by Kartograme, which is of course affiliated with US Games, as based on the descriptions on the box. And if you do have either of those, or if you have the Lauren Forrestal reproduction, I would be curious to hear whether you read with them and how you read the that Spanish captain card that replaces the High Priestess, and the Bacchus that replaces the Hierophant. As I mentioned, I also will link Kartograme website, which I'm very excited. I mean, yeah, the decks are pricey, but I'm very excited about what Agnes has to offer in terms of reproducing, recreating, and printing, the printing process of the cards. And yeah, so please do let me know if you don't have any decks. You probably do have an opinion about having the Spanish captain and the Bacchus god of wine replacing the High Priest or the Lapopopus and the Pope cards. And also, while I'm on it, you know, I do love my Besançon as well, so do let me know as well, what do you feel about Junon and Jupiter replacing again the Papes card number 2 and the number 5 of the Le Pope or Hierophant. And also, let me know if you think I should round the corners of those cards. I'm kind of undecided, so I would like to hear your input on that as well. As always, I am so very grateful for your time, for stopping by, for watching my video. I'm sending you so much love and light, my friends. Namaste.